Images, I think, is becoming more and more important in our lives. More we're going to, I mean, anyway, the human being is a visual one, so that's one of the basic, or most important senses. I think. So we connect to the world very much about our visual sense, and so it does make to go more into this field, really seeing that we have this iconic terms called in the academic sphere to really go more into image-based approaches, especially in the field of action, research, and as well transformation project, given the fact that it helps very much to express if language is critical, so just broaden our approaches and not be limited so much to language directly or just to speech-based approaches. So I think in general, visual methodologies are becoming more and more important as well in research as in practical and transformational work. So we have seen a lot of work going on in the field of participatory change project and actual research, especially we could go around with a camera and just take photographs. And so images in general are becoming much more important. And but I'm addressing now a little bit the research focus on the methodology of image-based organization analysis and creation. Well, show you a little bit what I'm doing here in the presentation, and later on we can really discuss the practical side of it, how to implement, how to look at it. So first a little bit on organizations, how I see organizations, or as well networks in society. So of course the specialty or subdivision of organizations. The notion of organization is epistemic terrains. I'm going to explain this a little bit more. Then we're going to image-based strategies of desirable futures. So that's the transformational idea of how can we go with image-based approaches into the desirable futures. And so which is, of course, the wish of action-based research activities too. And then we have a look how institutional practices of vision, also with network-based practices of vision are given, and how we can analyze and from this on as well develop institutional orders of organizing the new. To really have this analytical dimension and as well, of course, always the shaping dimension in there. So in the best sense that it would be a modular and vice versa process to really get this together. That depends on the context whether this is possible, of course. So just let's have a look here in those 3 steps. Seeing institutions as epistemic terrains means I come from a Foucauldian perspective, which means from power knowledge, critical perspectives. The French philosopher Michel Foucault is in the whole discussion on postmodernism quite well-known thinker, and he has said we're not living in an objective world, nor we are living in ahistorical worlds or ahistorical worlds, but we all living in history, all living in social context and in as well language-based and concept-based world. So there is no outside of this, just really in a nutshell. So that means that as well any institution, any organization is a kind of an epistemic world. There is kind of an epistemological perspective you can take. So what is the knowledge structure? Really analyze what is the rationalizations, what is the basic root metaphors, you could address it like this as well, coming from the image-based approach. What is the metaphors underlying our actions of our cultures in organizations and institutions? So this is in fact the basic approach here, and to see organization not just as a harmonistic and let's say just only one idea or one concept there, but it's always a multi-voice or potentially multi-vocal setting, or potentially multi-stakeholder setting with conflictive perspective as well. And so it's not only just one voice or one perception or one idea there, but of course it's the bigger, the more people are there, the more involvements, especially in network cooperation settings. Of course, you have a multitude of stakeholder perspectives, so it's structurally quite conflicted. So anything which comes new into organizations and institutions then, of course, meets those institutionalized practices, those institutionalized structures, and has to be connected there. So we ask about the modus operandi, so how does it work, what is worked out there in this epistemological perspective, and to really, Foucault would say that we do, like an archaeologist, we really try to see to dig underneath our feet, where in our cultures digging underneath our feet, to really learn about our normality, which we don't question in general, of course. And to go for this positive analysis, which just means what is the organizing pattern? This positive is the organizing pattern which organizes discourses in organizations. So, and it could be just having some of the basic patterns here, just to get an idea. We are having just in our broader general discourses in societies, we find the expectable future rationality, which is strongly coming in with all the measurement discourses we're having at present. And that could be one of the major rationalities in organizations, to say, let's measure everything, and then that would be maybe the major topic there, major metaphor, and the major logic of creating the future too. And the second one, the entrepreneurial self, so go into it is plannable, it is manageable, it is all doable, we just do the plan and then we just can realize that the concept of the manageable future as a basic institutional pattern you could find in organizations. Or as well, organizations could live, or as well networks could live by this idea or this philosophy of we have to include everybody, it has to be a participatory process, and it's not just one expert or two experts doing a survey and a large-scale assessment and then knowing it all, but just asking everybody involved and go for, as well, vision-oriented approaches and desirable futures. That would be another metaphor, basic metaphor, root metaphor you could find in organizing. And the fourth one, I think we're listening to our Vice Chancellor here, we're here into this logic and to this rationality of self-transcendence, of ecology of mind, of just inquiring into the self, and really having a mindfulness approach of ideas going here. So kind of the basic pattern then would be your evolution. You are the one who can transform and transcend yourself and as well the organization. So just for examples, what could be and are rational, let's say, kind of basic rationalities, or as well foundational patterns you could find underlying the organizational strategies of change and of creating the future. And that's in that sense that might just be mental models and not necessarily already image-based, but it would be mental models behind, or collective ideas behind. Now, if we now focus on the vision-based approach, which is just the one where images become more important than just in the analytical sense, because there, going to the transformative idea, we are of course into how can we use images for transformation, because we all know that we all carry those images, those mental models, those ideas with us, and it's basic to us. So exactly, the image fauna would be one of excellent basic strategies to go into vision and image-based approach. You see how here is a large group intervention setting, and you see all those images there, people painting images or being co-creating images and really developing common futures and ideas where they want to go. So the desirability then would be the major pattern of organizational change there, or collective network change as well. So this idea of vision transformation is strongly connected to the image and to image practices, and we will see that this is in an action-based research you would have this as, of course, a transformational method, but as well with the image folder, with painting. I brought some little people improvise now here, some pens here, so that's what we could do if we still have time. And as well, I have the analytical part, of course, what is underlying root metaphors and what is change ideas. So going for participation, imagination, and inquiry. And I like this picture of Marguerite here very much, which the fond miroir is, so really have the sky in the eye itself. So of course, it's kind of, let's imagine and let's visualize the desirable future. I think it's very nice in this picture which Marguerite here is painted. So going for this approach now and seeing how those transformational methods, and this comes in now like kind of sequential mode, and it doesn't matter, I will add this audio because you can see it at once. This is one approach which links very nicely to the image-based approaches, like the approach of Cooper-Ryder's appreciative inquiry, because it relates very nicely to the vision, and it can be added very beautifully to image-based approaches. So go in the phase, that's in fact is a small inquiry and affirmative approach, starting with the question, what is already there, what is already positive and good there, which can be in the discovery phase, what would be the best you could ever imagine of, going through the dream phase, and really get a bit more concrete then, how would that shape, how would it be if you really go for it and do it, bring it into the real world, and what would you do, which next steps would be to be taken in order to make it happen. So really the whole cycle of from taking what is positive already in our given present world up to just imagining the dream phase and create from there this affirmative pattern of organizing. So really go for imaginative projection, and with this positive imagination create a desirable future. This is a very nice instrument I definitely would recommend. So for anybody who's would like to go, just check with David Cooper-Ryder's work on appreciative inquiry, and there's lots of titles that were done in the meantime, so in the last years. So I think that's very quite recommendable, either for practical work and in the social transformation area, as well as for social research. So that's both nice, and that's processes which can be very nicely linked to image-based approaches. You can work with images at any stage of the process, and so go to this thing to create as well. There is coming in here the motivation for change, and the hope especially as well, because in most cases the tragedy in organizations is that people lost their hope that change is. So it's really Bloch coming in here with the idea of the principle of hope as the transformation mode of society. So that looks like we do kind of a pattern like this. So we would sit in circles. That's maybe what we're just thinking about reorganizing now in the next step. So it fits very nicely to have the circle pattern and have people sitting in small groups and having excellent picture-based approaches there, image-based approaches to then communicate about those images and what is the mental and the inner model of change there underlying, and then to really co-create a common idea there. And now, if we go for an analytical view, then of course in organizational and as well in network perspective, we would always have to see so how do those levels come together? Because we have so many different visual levels in an organization or in a network, and that would be multi-level analysis, an image-based approach, and we would then have here image-based material in change process, which exactly would be those approaches, having no image folder, having the material here to paint with, having maybe photos been taken, and in particular actual research approach, you would go into the community, take photos, and check what is the spaces we want to have more, or what is the spaces which are critical, and then we would take those and use them, or as we have seen the inner visions, and to work on this, we will do that now later on, which is good. Then you would talk about the mental models, identifications. You could maybe tape the mental models identifications. We have done this in large group interventions to have those group settings and get it taped, and then you can of course analyze how from the individual it comes out in the outer world and within the group setting. Then you would see the collective projections into the future, which are in large group settings, of course, from the small group which develops a common idea into the large-scale setting of maybe 100 to 200 people co-present in a large group change setting, and then you could see what is being published in this way, what is being communicated in the public space of 100 or 200 people there. So we had an organization where we had the small groups, and of course then you have the setting what people speak, and then the notion of power becomes much more relevant, of course, than it would be in the small group. Do people have the trust to speak what is critical? Do people have the trust to speak out their visions? Is that within the frame and the range of the common idea, the common concept of the speakable, of as well of listening and what is possible to articulate there? So that would be something which is very, very important in an analytical perspective to get what is the collective projections in those public spaces which are rising, let's say, from the small group up to the larger groups, to the intervention process of large group intervention here, and you would have the symbolic installations and change processes there, how images are used, and as well the whole installation of the process as such, to have those large group setting. Who is speaking, who's in front, how is the whole setting insulated? You would have the potential to analyze this. And of course then you would go into the next steps of officiality, let's say, of artifact analysis, of home pages maybe, of statements, of mission, organizational mission statements, and see how does that link and how does that connect to what people articulate based on their vision and based on the material working with images. Because there in the home pages you will find images too, of course, right? And that may differ a lot to what people feel, what is present to them. If we look at big companies nowadays, and that might be wonderful images, how they are social, sustainable, or ecological sustainable, and well, people working for Shell might not necessarily share this idea. Other big companies producing quite a little bit of risks, ecological risk, or other activities. So we would see that we would connect all those different levels of image-based analysis here with the artifact analysis of organization mission statements and home pages, and you would use this, integrate this into a multi-level analysis of iconic organizational knowledge, and you would see which kind of modes and types of aesthetic transformation are underlying here. So this would be just the social research way here to go for this iconic organizational dispositive analysis and get this in. And that, as I said, that those organizational politics of image in symbolic orders, so really have organization not just as a given entity, but see that's an installation, it's a symbolic order where knowledge and power as well image-based processes are taking place. So we have those representational aspects here, which is given in the visual practices of the organization as such. We have those representations of the inner images of the people, what they carry, what they have, what is important to them, what they express in those generational strategies of working with images. So why do I take, if I have 200 of those images lying down there on the floor in the pictures, why do I take this one, or why do I grab this one and not the other? That's not, of course, just coincidental, but it does have something to do with my inner world. And so how do I link my inner world to those articulations in a way? And it helps me to articulate, which is of course not there, and which is not have been present to be at the level of articulation or to give them a word to speak it out. But it helps me just to get it spoken out. Inner images into articulation. So that's the metamorphical step where we come from the inner representations into articulation, into speakabilities, the creatabilities, the indication of the new thing, doabilities, and so the really broaden the horizon of what is possible for individuals or the collective. And so see how this process goes from indication to co-constitutional in the creation of symbolic orders, because there's this shift and this change process going on, up to the norm setting, norm constitutional processes, because to shape what is relevant to us, what is the values underlying, what is important in our organization or in our network, and to be able to formulate collective imaginary, collective vision, and to go into a process of normalization in the sense of really in this democratic process, which it is, of course, to see norm setting, in the setting in the process as such. So not somebody there saying, that's the norm, that's the way how we should do it, and just to be like giving the orders, but co-creating norm constitution, and to say what is important to us as a collective. That would be based then on the collective imaginary, the vision that's a process of normalization at the organization, at the institutional level. So you're here in the phase of norm constitution, and by those strategies of collective vision, and then connect this, of course, with the institutional surfaces. It's like a circular mode of analysis in a way, because it's ideally it would be a spiral process to have the developmental mode of the organization in reshaping and visualizing, reflection process into this common future here. So that's how the representational, the generational, the articulational, and metamorphical into the transformational, non-constitutional process would shape then the poses and of organizational politics of images in symbolic ordinance. So this would be the analytical framework. We can analyze image-based transformational approaches and have this methodology then to ask which pictures are chosen by participants in innovation labs or in future labs. So why do people choose which picture? It's very speaking, it's very, very elucidating, I think. What do they mean to them? What is the inner representations related to the pictures? Which images become collective images, so that the selection process is important there. So what is the collective projections of visions? What is regarded as relevant and what is regarded as to be neglected? What is the process dynamics of installation in future searches and innovation labs? So to see those image-based dynamics there, and to see the artifacts level, the mission statement level, as I said, what is published, what becomes really set as and in that sense not fluid, but just established there then at the homepage level or whatever. And how does that relate, as I said? So that makes it a little bit more concrete with the Christians. And so that's the presentation. Thank you very much for listening.